Ah yes, the Samsung Galaxy S4, Samsung's next big thing. Now, Samsung has a reputation for impressing, and I have to admit, I'm pretty impressed, but only with certain aspects, so I suppose I kinda have mixed feelings with this device. Now, a lot of you are comparing the Samsung Galaxy S4 with the Samsung Galaxy S3, claiming that it's not a big enough upgrade from last year's model. Well, I'm sorry to say this, but I completely disagree. Yes, the Samsung logo is in the same place. Yes, the buttons are in the same place. And yes, it's still using TouchWiz, or as Samsung likes to call it, Nature UX. But let's start with the exterior. First, Samsung has decided to stay up to date and throw in a 5-inch Full HD 1080p Super AMOLED display, which looks just amazing. However, even this new display still suffers from the same direct daylight, low visibility issue that plagued the Samsung Galaxy S3, even at maximum brightness. Now, some prefer the 4.8-inch displays and think that 5 inches is a little too big for them, but for me it's just perfect. It's also using Corning's new Gorilla Glass 3 to prevent against impact and scratch damage. Now, the power button on the right and the volume rocker on the left have also had a tiny change in that they seem to be slightly slimmer and to me look and feel ever so slightly better over the S3. The home button also has a much more solid feeling when pressed, and let's not forget about the capacitive home and back buttons, which on the black model seem to completely disappear once the backlights turn off. And on the back, as you would imagine, we have the 13 megapixel camera with flash and speaker. However, this time they've placed the flash underneath the camera and the speaker at the bottom, much like the Note 2. Though I'm not sure if placing the speaker at the bottom has really changed anything in everyday uses. The overall form factor of the Samsung Galaxy S4 has changed a bit. Last year's model has lots of curved edges. This year, Samsung has seemed to square off the corners and sharpen up those curves a little, which is actually quite inviting to my hands. And this year, as strange as this sounds, it feels just that much easier and more solid feeling to hold. I swear Samsung did this partly to make it a little easier for accessory manufacturers to design things like screen protectors, skins, and so on. And I think we all know that the Samsung Galaxy S3 wasn't exactly the best device to install a screen protector on, let alone keep one for long without our cases raising the edges due to the curved design of the display. Now, I'm not 100% sure if Samsung still used the same hyperglaze technology on the Samsung Galaxy S4 as they did with the S3, but I must say, whatever it is they used, I'm not a huge fan of the fingerprint magnet finish. It just feels slimy. Diving into the software side of things, Samsung's done some pretty interesting stuff here. Things we've really never seen before in a smartphone. Yes, the TouchWiz interface still very similar, but it's got some tricks up its sleeve. So let's start with the overall feel. For the most part, I've never really minded the look and feel of TouchWiz, but this time it feels just flat out laggy. Now, I know some of you out there who own a Samsung Galaxy S4 and are watching this video might be getting up in arms right now and yelling, "Mine doesn't lag!" But I'm sorry to say, I'm not the only one who's noticed the lag. It has nothing to do with the S-Voice, and it has nothing to do with the animation and window transition speeds. Quite simply, it's due to the increasingly heavy UI Samsung design, as well as the fact that myself and several others think they've just rushed the OS this time. Android 4.2.2 is still a relatively new version of Android. Heck, even HTC with their latest flagship, the HTC One, came with Android 4.1.2. And guess what? It runs like a dream. I still have yet to experience any lag on my HTC One. I'm what some would consider to be a bit of a Samsung fanboy, but again, I'm sorry, but there is noticeable lag here, folks. Something that I found to be very pleasing is the addition and utilization of the quick settings toggle of Android 4.2.2. Now, previously we only had the power toggles moving across the top of the notification tray, but now tapping the quick settings button expands on this and reveals almost every setting you would ever need without having to jump into settings to make your selections, or even downloading a third-party app from the Play Store like you will with the HTC One to get the same functionality. Most of the Samsung apps that come with the Samsung Galaxy S4 to me seem half-baked. For example, the optical reader app, which among other things can translate text in other languages to the language of your choice as long as it's in the language library. But it doesn't exactly do the best job of this. Many times it won't pick up on the languages, and when it does, it takes far too long for it to translate. I just can't see this being a practical app in most circumstances. And the Story album lets you create an album of photos, and then using a partnered service, you can fire off that album and have it turned into an actual physical photo album for you to hang on to. While this is a cool feature, how many of you are really going to use this service? S-Health is another one of those things where if you're into health, chances are you're not going to rely on your smartphone to whip you back into shape. And if you're already into health, chances are you already have a system in place to help you keep track of your diet and so on. Not to mention the lack of accessories that Samsung is planning on releasing for the S-Health app. Well, Where are they, Samsung? We also have S-Voice, which has been made obsolete with Google Now. And as far as I'm personally concerned, S-Translate is the only Samsung Galaxy S4 S app that works very well and I can actually see real-world uses for. Jumping into the settings menus, yes, menus, plural, it seems this time around Samsung has decided to divide the settings menu into 4 tabs. For some who don't like change, this might be a little confusing at first, but for others, such as myself, this seems logical and I don't mind the change. Not too much has changed here that we haven't already seen in the S3, but with Android 4.2.2, you will find some little goodies like lock screen widgets and some others here and there. But where you will notice a big change is under the My Device tab and Input and Control. Now, I'm not going to cover all the crazy magical abilities that these options give your S4 because some of them, quite honestly, just aren't practical and I can't see myself using them. But I do, however, use Quick Glance, which, when the screen is turned off, waving over the sensor near the Samsung logo magically turns the screen on and gives you a glimpse of how many emails, text messages, and missed calls you have, as well as even battery life. AirCall Accept is another cool feature that, when receiving an incoming call, waving over the sensor answers the call and can place it in speakerphone mode by default. But then there's some cool, but for me personally, not so practical features, such as those in the smart screen list like Smart Pause. Though for some, this feature might work really well and make a lot of sense. For me though, when using this feature, I found myself more often than not in a dimly lit room when watching video media, and the video would just pause by itself, even though I was still looking directly at it, where the point of this feature is to only pause when you look away. Or the Smart Scroll feature, where the camera detects your eyes and scrolls the screen when on a web page, for example, based upon whether you tilt your head up or down. Now, I don't know about you, but not only will I personally never use this, but can you imagine how you would look in public if you were to do that? Again, cool feature and some people may get some real use out of it, but it's just not for me. And let's not forget about the new Air View feature that takes advantage of the new hypersensitive screen. Now, I have to say, in here, I see some truly practical options, but for me though, it's just not how I personally choose to use my device. But Web Page Magnifier is cool. Without touching but hovering your finger over objects will magnify it for easier viewing. And Progress Preview, whereby hovering your finger over the timeline of, say, a video, will give you a little preview, making it easier to find the moment you're looking for. An information preview might be useful for some to get a quick glance at events in your calendar or viewing photos in your albums by hovering your finger, but for me, it's just something I personally won't ever use. The 13 megapixel camera on this beast of a phone is certainly no slouch, although, like many devices' cameras, terrible in low lighting. In okay to great lighting, I really am impressed. The camera software I believe to be taken from the point-and-shoot Samsung Galaxy camera that I've reviewed not too long ago. It has all the cool mode settings that are very easy to access and equally as useful for non-pro photographers like me. And the core camera settings, much like the main phone settings, is also divided into 3 tabs: camera, video, and the main settings. My hands-down favorite feature is the dual picture-in-picture camera and video option. Just tap the button and the front-facing camera turns on and places you in the picture. You can also switch the cameras around too. So cool. To sum up my feelings on the camera and the software, it's pretty darn impressive and takes amazingly sharp pictures when the situation and settings are just right. Consuming media and watching movies has been just awesome. I'm sure there are some out there that will nitpick the heck out of it, but watching full HD movies on this thing is incredible. I've always enjoyed the color that AMOLED displays produce, but now it's in 1080p and at 5 inches, soon of course to be trumped by the up-and-coming Galaxy Note 3, and playing games on this bad boy was an awesome experience, even though I've mentioned before that I've experienced noticeable interface lag. With the new Qualcomm 600 clocked in at 1.9 GHz, you really get to see its power. I've never once noticed any lag during gameplay. It's as if the phone's talking to the processor and the GPU and says, "Hey guys, this person wants to play a game. Let's show them what we can do." Great frame rate, amazing color, and again, nice big 5-inch 1080p display. Though after using the HTC One for a while now, I do wish the Samsung Galaxy S4 would have come with dual front-facing speakers too. So the last thing I want to talk about is battery life. The S4 comes with a 2600 mAh battery, and for all intents and purposes, that's a decent sized battery. However, all I can say for battery life is that it's okay. Some people have reported some pretty awesome battery life of up to a full day and a half before plugging it in at around 30%. Such has not been the case for me. I find myself unplugging in the morning around 8:30 and then needing to plug it back in at around 9:30 with about 14% battery left. I've even found myself charging it twice in one day, though I was doing a fair amount of gaming and video watching. So basically, folks, what we have here in my experience with the S4 is an awesome device that, although for me at the moment has some interface lag, I predict will get much better with upcoming software updates in the coming months. And with these updates might come better battery life, and we'll probably end up with an overall lag-free device, unless of course like me you don't want to wait and you plan on flashing custom ROMs. The hardware is fast, the display is beautiful, the camera is amazing, and overall it's an awesome phone that I look forward to doing many more videos on in the future. And yes, this is definitely a device that I would recommend picking up if you're wondering if you should upgrade. Well, that about covers it. I'm sure there are things that I didn't cover, but either way, this was my experience, opinion, and review of the Samsung Galaxy S4. I hope you liked it, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button down below as it does help my channel grow. And if you're new to my videos, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, as well as a bunch of existing and upcoming rooting and custom ROM videos. You can also stay up to date on all things the smoking Android by following me on Twitter and Google+. Links to those can be found in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.